I was the only happiest waiter because I get to see like these wealthy people throwing their weddings, their events. And I'm very observant on things. So I watch how they behave, how they express, how they talk, how they have fun. And I'm just having a great time. From that moment on, everything that I did in my life became some sort of lesson. And I would try to, just make the best out of it and enjoy every single second. And if I needed something that I was missing, I would just find a way to like learn it, to like get better at.
Hey, Mile 40 fam. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by the leaders in male grooming at Manscaped. They're helping us spice up the hair care regimen on our heads with something fresh. No, it's not a new razor. It's not ball deodorant. Get ready for the game-changing new Scalp Buffer by Manscaped. Let's break down why you need to add this bad boy to your hair care routine. First things first. Check out these thick silicone bristles. They're 100% antibacterial. No more germs hitching a ride on your head. The bristles gently exfoliate your scalp, and the product helps reduce flaking caused by dry skin and buildup. The bristles enhance shampoo penetration for more foam and less product juice. It's not just about feeling good. A better lather means better cleaning power. You can also pair it with the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner from Manscaped for the ultimate hair care routine. These products are designed to work together, giving your hair the nourishment and strength it needs. Simply put, the Scalp Buffer is your scalp's secret weapon. Its antibacterial silicone bristles keep your scalp healthy, maximizes shampoo performance, gives you a soothing massage, kicks bacteria to the curb, and stores away like a champ. Take your scalp from zero to hero with the Scalp Buffer. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code MILE40 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code MILE40 at manscaped.com. Thank you for tuning in to the Mile 40 podcast. I am Bishoy Tadros, the author of Break Barriers and Audacious, both of which are sold on Amazon. And I invite you to join me as I engage with guests to discuss those bounce back moments that we encounter on our personal journey. Mile 40 is a forum to learn about how athletes, professionals, and leaders of all backgrounds stare down moments in life where the only option is to rise up. The Mile 40 podcast strives to remind listeners that the comeback is always greater than the setback. Welcome back to another episode of the Mile 40 podcast. Thank you all for continuing to tune in. I very greatly appreciate it. I am super excited about today's episode. Before we dive in, please be sure to hit subscribe or follow if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Also, check out the show notes, pick up a copy of Break Barriers or Audacious, and use the discount code. Also, do me a solid right now. Take a second, hit 5 stars, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It tremendously helps me grow the show, and I really, really appreciate it. Today's guest is AJ Merino. He was born and raised in Ecuador, becoming a prodigy artist by age 10 and a competitive tennis player at the same time. It was tennis, however, that truly became his passion and opened doors for him, including a scholarship to study and play at Ashford University in Iowa. From there, AJ made his mark as a tennis pro in New York City to navigating the ups and downs of entrepreneurial life. We're going to dive into all of it. But let's just kick things off right away. AJ, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Richard. This is going to be an amazing time. So
I'm excited, man. So listen, Ecuador to Iowa, that's got to be quite a
Oh,
shift.
oh man, it was like a totally world of what I thought it was going to be. I have family in New York City, so I always came to New York City as a kid. I was almost born here. My mom was pregnant of me. My dad told my mom, "Hey, bring it to Ecuador." So I was born in Ecuador. I turned 1 in New York City. But going to Iowa, oh my God, it was a whole different experience. Snow to the rooftops, corn in the summer. Man, it was a crazy experience.
So how old were you when you left?
So I was probably 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
And then that was it. I mean, I left Ecuador for school and I knew that was the last time that I would live in Ecuador. Like as a kid, I knew that I wanted to be in New York City. I was heavily influenced by the New York City culture, by my family. My cousins will always come to visit. So that's where I saw myself. And slowly but surely, I made my way to New York City.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about what life in Ecuador was even like for you. Walk us back through those first 17, 18 years of life, and paint a picture for us.
For sure. So my life was very different to like, let's say the average kid in my circle, right? I kind of never fit in anywhere, because of the fact that first my parents' house was in downtown. And in that area, think about like downtown Manhattan. It's very like commercial, right? Lots of offices, lots of buildings, and not too many houses or residential buildings. So I didn't really grow up with a lot of friends around me, a lot of neighbors. Like there was an empty lot next to me, and the next house, my parents bought it and made it into rental rooms. So it was pretty much me and my family. So which now I appreciate a lot because it made me like spend a lot of time with them. And after, seeing the experiences of many of my friends, I really appreciate that. And then I have my circle of tennis friends, and then I have my circle of high school friends, but I didn't get along with them just because of the discrepancy of like me being a tennis player and my parents, my dad being a successful businessman. There was a lot of friction there. It's very different in the way that we, see people here in the US. And then my tennis friends, they were kind of like everything to me. We will train together. We will go to tournaments, tour the country. So that became like kind of like my whole life. Um, and it was always that I would always look up to, and just have those moments and then get into the competition mode and spend time, 5, 6 days out of one week just in that location. So it was really fun. And then, I left very early. I left like 17 years old, I believe it was. So it was kind of like a short time in the span of like my whole life. But I got to spend a lot of time with my dad. So I got to see everything that he did. He successfully built the life that he wanted. He successfully reached the peak of his own empire. So growing up, my house was big size because in the ground floor, it was my dad business. So he had a print shop. So he was an author. He made his own books. He wrote his own books, produced it and distributed. He was a doctor in law. So his office was in the house. So I grew up in that environment of like, hustling on like grinding on like watching him like, taking meetings, watching him like just waking up like a clock, waking up like at 5 a.m., coming to my room and knocking the door like, Alvaro, like get up. It's time to, time to grow. And he will always come and tell me, when you wake up, take a spoon of encouragement, and then go and start your day. And he was always like programming to become this huge persona, right? You're going to be huge. You're going to do this. Life is going to be like this. Always throwing lessons at me, even when I have no idea,
Huh,
what
what he's
all
talking
of that
about.
meant.
Yeah.
I said, what are you talking about? You know, to the point that in my room, I have a bookshelf full of books that he put, that he thought it was like, oh, this is good for him. And then my books, right? And if you see, like, there's a lot of like business book, like self-improvement books, like affirmation, visualization books, all these names that we all read now that with adults. That's what I was reading when I was, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have no TVs. They never bought me like a PlayStation or anything like that. So I was like kind of like an intellectual kid, but not really. I just really didn't know what I was doing there. So I just took whatever I have in hand. Um, so that was kind of like what determined who I was going to become like in the years to come.
Wow. So like that's tremendous though. Like your father, he was like the ultimate hype man for you, like at a young age. Did you have any siblings?
I have three more. Yes. And the oldest one can be my dad. He's like 54 years old. I'm 32. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wait, so where were you in the order?
I'm the last one.
You were the
My,
youngest. Wow.
my dad was like in his early 50s when I was born. So you can see like,
Wow.
there was a lot going on.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
Oh, yes. Yes. moving forward, finished school, moved to New York City, met my girlfriend in Ecuador. She came to New York City with our dog. So now, we're starting to create a life together. We moved to our own apartment. Well, our own share apartment because I was with a relative before. And then at that time in life, I think it was about a year that I started a partnership to create a high performance academy, with another tennis pro from South America in New Jersey. So I put my whole life into that pretty much because that's kind of like how I was back then. Like every time I did something, I was just all in. Like I'm, I'm the opposite of like, don't put your eggs in one basket. I'm like, no, let's go all in. So I had that, but I, I didn't knew what I know now. So I was pretty naive when it comes to like business, like partnerships, like contracts. I was too up in the air. So eventually, this person wasn't a good person. His ethics weren't there. So eventually, we broke up. I realized that I, I lost too much in everything, in time, in money. I created an amazing program, have a lot of great relationships with all the kids and parents that I met over the period that I was there. But just like everything else in life, that I done, um, I'm very grateful for all these failures that I had because it just taught me so many lessons, for the next thing. So while that was happening, my dad passed away. And while that was happening, we also got evicted from our apartment. And that's a whole story. The person that was in our apartment where we came in, she was hiding information. She was hiding that there was a $20,000 loan that was owned, not loan, sorry, $20,000 rent that was owned by the old roommates that we were taking over. So my other roommate was a good friend from my city, from Ecuador. So that was nice to have him. But all of a sudden, I already told my partner, listen, this is it. We're over. But, I still need to finish because it was summer camp. So I'm not going to leave my kids. And it's like 2, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, all the way in Fort Lee. Our apartment was in Harlem and I got a call. It's like from one of my roommates. Hey, AJ, like, we're getting evicted. Like everything, they changed the lock. They're taking your dog. And at that moment, I'm thinking like, oh my God, like what's happening? Like what's happening? So I called Narelle, my girlfriend, and she's like on the way to pay for a ticket because back then she didn't know that you had to get a ticket to get on this like bus, which it happened to me too. I thought they were just free. So she was on her way to pay a fine. Say, hey, like drop everything, go to the apartment. They're taking Patan, our dog. And then I took an Uber all the way. Back then it was like $70, which was so much money for me. And then, hell broke out. And like a few days after, my dad was already like decaying in his health and he just passed. Which it was probably like the hardest moment in my life. Because he was someone very important to me. Like, I think like because of him and also obviously by the hand of my mom, because they work together in business and in everything. Uh, but because of him, I'm where I am today, right? So
So
not be, yeah.
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. I
Uh,
want to make sure that I capture this for the audience, and you know, w- so the way that you worded it was in a span of 3 weeks, you lost your father in Ecuador, you
hmm
broke up this partnership for your tennis academy, and then you got evicted from your
and
your
and we
apartment.
got evicted. Yes, we got evicted
Why did you get evicted?
because there was a $20,000 rent that was on the lease that me and my other roommate didn't know about, and
Ah, got it.
the lead roommate hide that information from us. So we were getting already like eviction letters, and she was
Ah, and
hiding
you didn't
everything.
even know you were getting the eviction letters.
Nobody knew everything.
Oh
Nobody knew
my god.
nothing.
Oh
Nobody
my
knew
god.
nothing. And like honestly, that was a moment in life that me, Narelle, our dog, my friend, my roommate, we were just living our best life because think about it. We were paying like $1,025 of
Yeah,
rent. It was a
yeah.
humongous 4 bedroom apartment, two living
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rooms. So life was great. I was like, finally, it's like, okay, like I can save money,
Settled into New York. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like that moment that it's like, oh wow, like this is life, right? And it still was nothing, right? But it was like that moment of like being at peace with yourself, knowing that you can afford your basic means, your rent, your food,
Yeah,
take care
yeah,
of,
yeah.
the girlfriend, the dog. So it hit us really hard. Yeah. And then my dad
So
passed away.
was that the order of events? Did your dad pass away first, or did you get evicted first?
So it was breakup partnership, eviction,
Oh my
and
god.
then to cherry on top, my dad passed away. All
Oh
right.
my
So
god.
in the midst of like pretty much being homeless, just figure it out, like bouncing around from some couch to someone's bed
Yeah,
to like knocking back to my aunt. Hey, listen, like we need this is what happened. Please let us stay with you again. Cause
yeah,
she was the aunt that initially took me for 7 months
yeah,
as I was starting my life in New York, right? So now we're all there and like, I'm losing my mind. I had to like, I'm committing to my kids in the summer camp. So like I'm Ubering from the Lower East Side to 83 and 3rd Avenue to pick up the kids and the daughters of the investor for this academy. Then Ubering again to Fort Lee, while my girlfriend is also like losing her mind. It's like, why you're not doing anything? Like find a place. And I'm like that. I'm doing everything I can, but think about it. Like I have to be on the court with the kids while I have my phone somehow, like, looking for apartments, trying to do this, trying to do that, and then rushing back to drop the kids and then looking for apartments. And then boom, my dad passed away. And then it's like, come on, like, can it get any better?
What
Um,
was your dad's ailment? What happened to your
so
dad?
he was, I mean, he was like towards like his older stage, right? He was like 70 years old, right? So he started already having like a lot of like health complications internally. And then he was having Parkinson and a little bit
Oh
of
god.
Alzheimer. So it was due to happen. And
It
I
was
think
slowly
something that,
deteriorating. Yeah.
yeah, I think something that really marked that transition of being like, I'm not too healthy, but I'm fine to like, oh, no, I'm not fine is that as he's starting to like lose himself into his mind, um, he got scammed with one of these many, scams that comes from Africa, whatever. And he lost, a lot of his money. And, in his lost mind, he was trying to like just do something better for the family, for us, his kids, right? And he ended up losing a lot of money. And that was the breaking point for his mental health that he turned into to the dark side. So that was the beginning.
How old were you when he passed?
I was, 20, that was 2018. So I was like 26, 27.
So you're young. You're 33 right now?
I'm
34?
32. Yes.
Oh,
32,
30, 32. Oh my god.
32. Yeah.
Wow. When we first met, you had told me about your current business, and I just assumed you were, wow, you've done a you've done a lot in a short period of time, and you've navigated a lot. And wow, with you, um, you exude the aura of what this show is all about, because you've had to go through several bouts of recreating yourself essentially, in a new country, right? Having to navigate the ups and downs of just, not only assimilation, which you didn't even mention really assimilation being the challenge. It's more so about like getting your footing, and adapting. And look, everyone knows, and I'm sure you'll attest to this now. New York will beat you down.
Oh, of
Uh,
course.
New York will test you like no other city. And a lot of people say it, but very few people have experienced eviction. Some people have, but not an eviction in the midst of breaking up a partnership in a new country, and then losing a parent. Were you able to go to your dad's funeral or no?
No, not at all. Not at all. Everything happened so fast. And my family, for some reason, I don't judge, and I was mad at them for like, few days, but they kind of protecting me from not going to Ecuador while that was happening, because in their minds, they were just trying to protect me. They didn't know if that could cause issues to my life, to my back then I was like in the process of getting like my temporary residency. So it was like very delicate, right? But no, I wasn't able. So that kind of like, really, really got into me. But like you say, I'm in New York City. So, you know, rent is due. I need an apartment. I need to work. I need to make money. Um, so I couldn't really like take a time and just go through that duel and like really, really like feel the pain of like what was happening with everything. It's like, yes, I'm like completely destroyed. Like my dad is gone and like all these other things are happening, but I had to keep going. So like New York City forced me to like, hey, AJ, like, check it out. Let's go. Keep moving, keep moving. So that kind of became that. It's a little more than resilience. That kind of became part of me. And it's like, I felt like unbreakable. It's like, doesn't matter what life throws at me, tomorrow is going to be a new day. Tonight I'm going to sleep. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up. Okay. What can I do with my day today? But at the same time, like it's always in me that feeling of, losing my dad and not be able to like feel emotions for him. So sometimes it gets into my head and, I miss him, or like I talk to my friends that lost that. I don't know if you met Ethan Blenner. I think that's someone that you can also have on your podcast. He started Six Gym, um, and he started that run club, right? So now we have a space where, all the people that goes there, lost their dads. So now we're all sharing stories and we're all open about it. And, there's a lot of emotions happening. So for the first time, I'm able to start to like get it out and feel better about it. I talked to Devon LeBake, a couple months ago. He lost his dad as well. And he's been very open about it. So like, just that change of words with someone that is being in the same page helps a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
You know,
You know, I it's funny, and I think it also goes back to one of the biggest lessons that I've learned since I've hosted this show is we don't know what people are walking around with. What the baggage that they're carrying, the things they had to go through. When I first met you, I knew you had a story. I figured it was all based on entrepreneurship, but I didn't know obviously any of this background. I didn't know. I figured there had to have been some sort of adversity, but I didn't realize the culmination. Uh, and now that I think about it, I think about the way that you described your father, and I think about the fact that you were a tennis pro. And I think about those two blueprints, right? Like one of the things about tennis that I'm sure you can attest to is you can't really think about the last play. You can really only look forward, right? You can only control what's in your control. And I do think that tennis players um, have a mentality and a wherewithal about them that's, probably similar to a lot of other athletes, but in a way also very unique to tennis because, tennis is all about unforced errors and making sure that um, you're managing those. And if you combine that with man, just the way that you described your father, I don't know him, but I feel like I would love the man. And he kind of embodies the way that I hope to impact my children with regards to um, making them believe that, anything they want to accomplish is attainable. And I feel like those two combined really set you up in a way that's very unique for you.
there's no 100%. Like I said, my dad was a big influence, not just from what he was like installing in my head, but just by leading by example. Like I didn't know what these things meant as I was a kid and grew up, but just watching him like going to the streets, I would go to the courthouse or to all these places that he would go with him, and people would just come to him and show him so much respect. Dr. Merino, so nice to meet you. So I was like, oh wow, this is something. But I didn't pay attention too much. And he was like the most humble human ever. He was the most introverted ever. That's why I'm so introverted right now. Like sometimes I'm in a room and I don't talk to anybody. That's just how I am. For me to talk to someone, there has to be a purpose. Um, so it helped me a lot. Like I watch him always carrying like a bunch of coins in the car and in his pocket because we have a lot of poverty in Ecuador. So in the red lights, people come to you, hey, money, or they wash your car, hey, money, on the streets, hey, money. So like he will always have some change to give to everybody. He will help everybody. So those were values that, whether I understand or not, they're part of me as a kid. And that's something that I reflect and live by now that I'm an author, now that I have the capability of do something, right? Tennis, I mean, wow, tennis installed discipline, commitment, right? Because to be good at tennis, to start winning, it's a commitment of every day of putting a lot of hours, putting a lot of effort, putting a lot of sacrifice and energy into trying to improve, 1% or maybe less. So eventually that stood with me. So when I came to New York right after college, it's like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I don't think about what that means. I just go and do it. Right. And then I think for me, like another two crucial points that define me besides what we just talked about with all these things that happening in 2 weeks is that, I became a dad at a really short age. My son was born in my second year of school. So it was made on my freshman year. So now it's like, my head, cause I
Wait, so
always have this,
how old were you?
I was like 18, 19.
Oh wow. So
I
you
was
have
a
like a
freshman,
15-year-old now?
12 year old.
12. Okay, got it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I'm in my entrepreneurial mindset. It's like, I'm already like figured out, okay, how can I make money? I need to make this, I need to take care of my son. I need him in school and blah, blah, blah. So the best option was to come to New York. I talked to a cousin. He's like, hey, like, help me find a job. So like, as a student visa, as an international student with a student visa, you can't work anywhere unless it's in the certain jobs that the school offers you. So like, I'm not going to say the word, but I wasn't allowed to work, but I was working in New York City, and the job that my cousin found me was at Famiglia, which maybe you're familiar. It's one of the oldest pizza places in New York
Yeah, I was
City.
gonna say the pizza place, yeah.
Yeah, on 86 on Broadway in the Upper West Side. So like, I'm all excited. He's like, you're gonna make, 500, 700 a week. That's the most I ever make back then, working, right? Cause I had all the little business. So I go there, I talk to the manager, you know, he's like, yeah, you're gonna work here, you're hired. It's very easy to get hired. And then I'm asking like, okay, what are my hours? What is my pay rate? So he goes, okay, you're gonna work from 8 to 8, 6 days a week for $270 a week. So
Oh my God.
it took me a second to understand what he was saying, right? 12 in my head, right? 12
12
hours,
hours a
6 days a
day.
week. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even remember. It was like two something dollars an hour. I'm like, I never in my life done that. Like, we can talk about my entrepreneurial journey soon, but I started already doing business in Ecuador that I will see like, $1,500 in a week. Now I'm having to work, more than 80 hours, and,
For
it was crazy.
$200.
But, taking all those lessons from my dad from tennis, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have a baby. I have to do what I do. Fuck it. Let's just go and do it. And the funny thing is that I was staying back then at my cousin's place in the Upper East Side on 89 in York. Back then, I have no idea too much about what neighborhoods means in New York City, but, the true wealth of people. So like, it's kind of like a big contrast, right? From me coming from college to staying in this luxury high rise to borrowing their bike to cross all the way Central Park to go into Familia and this completely, opposite world. Cause now first I had to make a persona for me. So I became a different person, cause now I'm surrounded by a lot of illegals that in a way we're sharing like the same vision of like trying to do something better for ourselves, for our families, trying to make money. But the mentality is different. It was the darkest 2 weeks of my life. Not a single smile, not a single positive interaction. It's all about suffering. Everybody shares their horrible stories that nobody wants to go through, but are real, right? Crossing the frontier, like seeing women get raped, seeing people dying, seeing people get sick. But that's what they do because they want to have something better for their families. So that also, kind of like made me more human. and made me appreciate more the things that life, give us. Because we get too comfortable, especially in New York City. Like I always hear a lot of people, in fitness complaining that, oh, I'm getting burned out. But we fail to realize that
Yeah, they
there's
don't
like,
know what burnout is unless they didn't hear this.
yeah, there's like hundreds of millions of people that they want to come to New York City and they never make it, and they're gonna die in their cities, in their countries, but here we are, complaining about our problems, right? So it's just that value of appreciating life as what we have and who we are. So those 2 weeks, were the hardest week of my life because I was in the most uncomfortable space and situation. And it just told me like, hey, AJ, like these 2 weeks are the hardest 2 weeks of your life. After this, nothing is going to be hardest. And it became my truth. I went through many different jobs. I worked more hours. Like I had a catering job as a waiter doing 60 hours one day, 80 hours the next day, 12 hours the next day, you know, but I learned to love everything. Like I was the only happiest waiter because it was in John on the water. So I get to see like these wealthy people throwing their weddings, their events and I'm very observant on things. So I watch how they behave, how they express, how they talk, how they have fun, and I'm just having a great time. But the other way is they're same thing, they're complaining. Oh, I'm not getting paid. I'm doing too many hours. I'm this, my feet hurt. My feet hurt the whole time, but I was just having such a good time. So like from that moment on, everything that I did in my life became some sort of lesson. And I would try to, just make the best out of it and enjoy every single second. And if I needed something that I was missing, I would just find a way to like learn it, to like get better at, right? So moving forward, like I remember like getting into the fitness industry. Um, and I don't know if you remember Ron when they were trying like their events before
Yeah.
COVID,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So one of my old friends from Ecuador too, he was like a big time. I don't want to say influencer because influencer is
We had Nate Checketts has been on the podcast.
yeah, and I listened to him too. So it was the opening of his first pop-up in Times Square, right? So I go there with my girlfriend and like we felt this big. Like that's how we felt, right? So now I see a lot of the fitness people that first I follow on Instagram and met them. And then I see Nate and all these founders and all these big business people. And I just felt so uncomfortable, so intimidated. Like I have no idea how to talk to these people. So the most I could go is just like, okay, let me just go and say hi. And then I wouldn't know how to make the conversation. So it was a very awkward moment for myself, a very awkward moment for my girlfriend. So after that, I came back home and it's like, okay, this is not going to happen again. I need to accept that I'm an introverted person. So I need tools. So I went on and, read many books, went on YouTube, went on podcasts, listened to audiobooks and just how can I, start a relationship? How can I connect with someone? How can I talk to someone? And just like that, I've been applying that into everything that I do in life. Curiosity is something big on me. If I lack something, I try to, work it, learn it, apply it into my life, and then keep moving.
Hey, Mile 40 fam. Are you craving a social life without the hangover? I'd encourage you to join Zero Proof. It's a lighthearted community diving into all things connection, lifestyle, and fun without the drinks. From wellness tips and product highlights to real life stories and every way to have a blast beyond the bar. Zero Proof has you covered. Be a part of the Zero Proof movement and take your social game up a notch. It's honestly one of my favorite newsletters. I'm going to put the link in the show notes for you all. Check it out. And if you enjoy it, tell them that Mile 40 sent you over. Again, check out Zero Proof. That's incredible. I mean, you hit on so many important points there, but yeah, a lot of times like it's just people take for granted. And I think, you know, the one thing I always say to people, like when I think about like the platform that I've been working on building and throughout my journey is, especially in the realm of New York, someone will always take the hand that you've been dealt and they'll figure out a way to win with it. Right? Like you talk about being surrounded by your colleagues at Famiglia, right? And like someone's always going to take your hand because there's always someone who's in a worse position than you, and they're always going to figure out a way to navigate it. And I think you embody that because like you said, right? Like they always came in with one form of an attitude, and one of the things that I think has distinguished you and propelled you forward, and it was probably incredibly difficult to do, very challenging to do, very isolating to do. But what separated you was the fact that I think you understood that someone is going to win with this hand. Like it's not a good situation. It's a shitty situation to be in, but someone's going to win with it. And maybe if I control what I can control, that could be me who navigates through. And that mindset and that awareness of taking note of your surroundings and picking up on how other people are going about their lives, I think really, really equipped you. It's cool because as we continue to talk, I learn more and more about you, and it was very easy for me to be like, all right, tennis pro and really good parenting. That's what made him. But as this story continues to evolve, it's a lot of it is also the personal lived experience of navigating through the trenches of being a father at a young age, having to work a job that pays horribly in a city that, you know, it feels like even though there's a lot of opportunity up there, it feels like when you're not up there that the road to getting there is just very, very difficult. Um, and so, thank you for sharing with us and being vulnerable about it because I just think about all the people who start their lives in the city, maybe with like a low paying internship, right? And they don't realize that a low paying internship or even a no paying internship, because if you have a no paying internship, that means that you have the luxury of a family who will potentially help you, that you have, that you're able to fall on, is is miles away from where you were. Um, and the uh type of journey that you had to navigate there. And so it's really eye-opening. So I wanna thank you for that. I want you to walk us a little bit now through, how your entrepreneurial journey took form. Where did it begin? And walk us through where we are today.
Okay, so I'll go super quick because, like I said, we can make a movie about it. It started at a young age. First by looking at my dad, right? But also looking at my next brother. By the time I was in elementary, he was in high school. So by the time I was like 10, 12, he was in college. And he also had this entrepreneurial mindset. So he started already like working on his own businesses, which he was growing at home and then eventually outside in an office. So I saw that. And he was also like a big influence into like, who I am today. So from there, I was like, okay, how can I get what I want? Because as a kid back then, when I was like 12, 14, I didn't have the things that the other kids have, right? And it was because my parents were trying to install lessons of life because they knew, right? They went through that experience. They seen what's out there. So they knew what to do with me. And I very appreciative of that. So that forced me to figure out how can I make money? Because my dad, hey, you want to go out? Here you go, $5. So most of the times I will go to the movies. So $5 will give me, a ticket for like 350 and maybe something else. So I will have to find a way to feed myself versus my kids. They will have like $20. It says like, oh my God. And then how do I get back home? So those little things of not getting what I wanted as a kid, not the things that I needed, because the thing that I needed, that my parents take care of that. So I'm very appreciative of that. But the things that I wanted, I had to figure it out. Okay, what can I do? So then I started making bracelets with rubber bands, right? Simple as that, you know. And then just like trying to do some little business, work in the house, help someone, try to get some cash, things like that. Eventually, this is the craziest part. I'm like 15 years old. My parents already bought the property next door. They convert everything into 11 rooms. So I saw that happen in life. So I was, oh wow, like, this is how you do something. This is how you take action. This is how you create a business. And one of those rooms was rented by this Cuban guy. And it's funny because you hear all these immigrants coming to the US, but it's the same story everywhere in the world. So Ecuador is like the US for some South American countries, just like any other country. So this Cuban immigrant came from nothing, from Cuba, through many different, cities to the rooms that my parents were renting. And then he started making his way up as well in my town. He got to the point that he was selling alcohol, right, to everybody, to parties, to clubs, to events. So I talked to him. He's like, listen, like, sell me some alcohol, give me a good price, and then, we'll be partners and whatnot. So he does. My mom doesn't know anything yet. So now I'm like selling alcohol. I'm like 15 years old and I'm selling alcohol. I didn't even drink yet. Like I was so into my tennis career, but I had a good network because of my tennis, you know, my tennis career. So I'm like going to clubs. I'm like talking to my friends that are making events and parties, and I'm selling. So now it's like people are buying cases and like I'm seeing money, like a lot of money for me as a kid, right? And I didn't know better, right? I was like, oh, let me use this money, invest in my future, buy things that can make me better. I'm like, let's have fun. So here I am, with all this money and just having fun, like going out and like, partying and whatnot. Funny story, super short. Like I have this big event at, military venue that they rent for events, right? So I call my best friend, hey, it's like, I need to go, pick up the money for this client. And I call my brother. He's like, hey, like, let me borrow your card. I'm like 15 years old. So like very responsible. So like I go pick him up and then he's with these three beautiful like Colombian models, right? I'm like, oh my God, like what's happening? So like I fall in love with one of them. So like now it's me, my friend, these three models, and then we go to this venue to pick up the money. Little did we know, or at least did he know that one of the Colombians was like one of the girlfriends of like some cartel guy.
Oh, Jesus.
So like imagine I'm like in the inside the venue. It's a military venue. This white Mercedes parks in front, not in the side, in front in the middle of the street, three bodyguards comes out. They open the door. This mafia looking guy with the hair bag, the button shirt, comes out and then just walk through the door. Military doesn't do anything. I'm like, what's going on? You know? So we almost get into a fight with these people, but I guess because we were kids, the guy didn't do anything. But my friend, when we're kids, we're stupid, So he's like trying to, come back and he's like, hey, like, that's my girl. So the guy turns around, like slapping the arm, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm crazy, I'm crazy. And you can tell, like, the guy is, it's messed up in the head. You know? So that was like a whole experience that I had from, doing that sort of business. But I didn't realize that, what I was putting myself into, right? Like I could easily go in the wrong way and became a total different person. But I guess I was so focused, tunnel vision into like what I was doing that I didn't see all the negatives around that. So eventually that business fell through because at that moment we had a lot of fake alcohol coming into the country. So my guy was having fake alcohol, I was having fake alcohol, and then the parents of my tennis friends, they were like, hey, like this is fake, and they were nice. They didn't say like, oh, you're scamming me. It's like, no, 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 come, I'm gonna show you. So they showed me all the things of why it was fake and the flavors. So I kind of learned about packaging and then ingredients and alcohol and whatnot. So from that moment on, it's like, okay, I got it. I can do this. So I became a poker player. I was making money for poker. Then I went to school. I realized that I can buy electronics in the US and sell it in Ecuador because it's like 3, 4 times more expensive. So now I'm making money in that way. I'm fixing phones. I'm making money that way in school. So my mom was always wondering how to like, create my own income. But that was the beginning overall. And then long story short, I tried to start a production visual company in Ecuador. Didn't work. I tried to start a production entertainment company in Ecuador, doing like bringing the Brooklyn, music culture to Ecuador. Um, And for that to work, I needed to stay there, which I didn't want. Like my mom was, oh, I want to travel between New York City and Ecuador, but I needed to stay too long. So that didn't work. So now I'm back in New York. I finished college. I had another business that, uh, kind of like was speaking out, which it was just, I realized that in New York City, the culture of like the pipes to smoke, like the smoking pipes, because you have
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
over 500 stores in New York City, was kind of
They're
big.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was kind of big. And I brought like this really handcraft, beautiful, crazy looking pipes. And people at school were like, hey, sell this to me, sell this to me. So I'm like, sure. And then I come to New York. I visit my sister while I was in college. It's like, hey, like, come, I have an idea. I want to try it out. So I just go to the stores and start like, hey, like, this is what I have. You want it? And all of a sudden I'm selling, $20 here, $35 here, $70 here. It's like, oh, wow. Like what's happening? So there could be something here. So like, as I'm finishing school, I'm already making all this business model. I come back home. I order a lot. I come to New York. I start, my life as a grown adult, and I make a, I make a briefcase. I mold it myself so I can fit the different pipes in all these molds and go with like a briefcase. It's like, hey, this is what I'm selling, you know. But it didn't work out because I couldn't open a business account and I didn't know better back then. And without a business account, I couldn't do the online business. So
You
I
couldn't open a business account because were you still not a permanent resident?
because I was in the process, right? But the thing is that the person that advised me at Chase didn't knew better, but I was able to do it and I didn't know better as well. So eventually I stopped that. So now it's like, okay, what do I do? That's when I give tennis an opportunity and my life changed in a second. I went from not having nothing to having to pay $1,400 of rent and I was making $1,100 a month in the next 2 weeks. So it's like, what do I do? So I go back into all my dad teachings. I start reading books, and then every time I wake up, I go into like my vision board and I read my affirmations. I pray. I believe in God, right? I pray, I meditate and I say my affirmations. And then I find this credits ad. Hey, head coach for, um, a private high school, Grace Church, which was like 12-minute words. Little did I know the director was from Ecuador. So I have the interview and he's like talking, talking, talking. We connect right away. Oh, by the way, you're hired. Oh, amazing. So now I'm having this biggest check ever I got in my life. And then I'm working for the clubs. So then right away, in a matter of like 2 months, like between April and March, I start seeing this humongous industry that tennis is. And then right away, I'm in the Hamptons that same summer, where people was telling me, hey, the next thing for you is like go to the Hamptons, but that's gonna take you 1 or 2 years because you need to know people, you need to learn this and that. It took me like 2 months, and I got a call. Hey, my director is looking for a prom. You want to take the job? I'm like, yes, because I was already trying to see, okay, what do I do in the summer? I need to pay rent. I see that, creating a summer camp for kids is really good. Maybe doing like a little red ball on the little kids so the parents can. So I was already meeting with people trying to figure out how can I make my own business in tennis. But then this opportunity happened. So now I'm in the Hamptons. I'm in Southampton, surrounded by all these billionaires, like $100 million houses and just getting to know like Faber-Castell, Ralph Lauren family,
Wow.
Hugh Jackman, I can never say his name right. Wolverine was there, Baby Driver, uh, this fashion, Wong, I forgot her name, Wong, something Wong. I was playing with her daughter. So like all these billionaire families and, I would say like 95% of them were the most amazing people, that I ever met. So we can talk all about that if you want, but I learned so much from that. So now I come back to your city after the summer, and that's when I started the academy, right? So then I go into that, and then from then on, the academy didn't work. So then I started my own brand right away, and then I was building my own clientele. I quitted the clubs. I realized that okay, everything is in my head. You know, once I start understanding the demographics of New York City. Once I started understanding like who lives in New York City, what can they afford, and how can I, give them something that they want, then life started changing for me. I realized that, you know, everything was in front of me. I was chasing the wrong things at the wrong times and doing many things at once. So obviously I wasn't good at anything, failing over and over and over and over and over. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go against my brain. I'm going to settle down. I'm going to focus on tennis. I'm going to take whatever, any times. Cause I was very picky. It's like, oh, I want to make my own calendar. I want to own my time, but I wasn't at that stage yet. So I took everything. So now I have cash flow. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. We're stable now. So now I can say that, okay, my own business gives me stability. So from there is different. From then I can, make choices. Now I can be more picky into like, who do I want to work with? Where do I want to go in my career? Right. And then I stopped, working on my ideas, and I always wanted to do something with my girlfriend. Like one of the main reasons that I chose her as my girlfriend is because, first we share the same vision of entrepreneurship. Like she also have a similar lifestyle than me, crazy life, right? But I saw her like from the distance taking care of my son, right? Without me asking anything. She was on top of him, and I saw so much love, so much like, the mom that I envisioned for my kids in the future. And she came, it's like, hey, like, do you have these fruits? I want to make a smoothie. And it's like, and you can tell that it's pure, love. There is no like, oh, let me show off with, AJ's son so that I can look good. It was like 100% purity. So I was like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the woman of my dream. This is the mother of the kids that I want to have in the future. So moving back to what I was saying, she was always having ideas. Oh, this idea. I'm like, that's bullshit. I'm like, oh, that's good, but maybe it's not going to work. So we will always bounce back and forth. And then she came with the idea of full of beans, which she wasn't full of beans. Right. And I was like, okay, this is good. This is something. So then we kept talking, and then I saw her, starting to work. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. This is it. I'm not going to work on me anymore. I'm going to stay with tennis. I'm going to grow into that. And then I'm going to put the rest of my time, in this. And then eventually, Full of Beans became a reality. We pivoted from the initial idea to what we have now, the pancakes and waffle mix. It was probably the most beautiful, exhilarating, and hardest journey of our lives to be where we are today. But it's definitely something that I won't change it at all.
So for the audience, Full of Beans is a protein-packed pancake waffle mix that is made primarily from beans. Is that correct?
From fava beans. So we are the
Fava
first
beans.
ones that we use fava beans, and we don't have any isolated proteins, no synthetic bullshit. We are the cleanest and the healthiest in the market, and the highest in protein content with 15 grams from fava beans. So 100%
What,
plant-based.
what year did you guys start?
So we launched May last year, but before that, we were working for like almost 3 years in the formula and then setting up all the legal and learning everything about it.
So for the audience, it's www.fullofbeanskitchen.com. Go check it out if you're listening to this episode. Support AJ, support the business. That's how you and I met. When you and I met, we were at a fitness event. You had told me about it. You had sent me some. It's great. I've had it. My wife has had it. But man, the most incredible part of it is I didn't know the story behind it. Like, not just the fact that you started with your wife, but or with your is it your wife now, or is she
Girlfriend.
girlfriend? Yeah, with your girlfriend, but it's everything before that. Um, and it's always so amazing to me to see the different routes that people take on their entrepreneurial journeys, because I bet you that when you first moved here from Ecuador, the last thing you thought you were gonna be doing was distributing fava bean, based pancake mix, uh, and doing it the way that you're doing it now.
There's no 100%. Like this vision of my life as AJ living whatever years I'm gonna live, it was I'm gonna have an organization that has its own portfolio in different industries, right? In sports, fitness, tennis, in food, in real estate. And now I added tech because that's the world we live in. So that's like my end goal. And then having like my philanthropy part as well, because I want to have my foundation. I want to rebuild my grandfather's school in Ecuador, and I want to help the community in Ecuador as well. So that's my end goal in life. And I guess that kind of helped me like lead myself in the way. But yeah, like I have no idea what I was going to do. For me, it was just being in the moment. Okay, I have this idea. I'm going to go for it. Okay, it didn't work. Oh, fuck. It sucked. Okay, next. Okay, next. Until finally, after so many falls and lessons, is I stopped. First, money. I need money. I need to be stable. I can't go too fast. Too many risks. I have a girlfriend. I have a dog. I have a son. You know, stop, slow down. And then little by little, gradually, I started realizing, started making better choices, started having more wins than fails. And here we are. But still, we're still making hard choices. We made the choice of, creating full of beings. So even though that life is great, we're still in a building stage. We're still, hitting a lot of hard walls. We're still like, not having money. Like we don't have money. We put in everything because I also started my new business in tennis and fitness, right? So it's a building stage, but now I can control myself. I'm multi-passionate, but I'm not doing more than two things. I'm only doing me and full of beans. And that's what I'm going to be doing for the next decade, until I turn 40,
AJ, one thing I want to call out is regardless of where the revenue figures go, regardless of where the numbers land on any of this, in my mind, and I'm sure in the mind of many of the listeners out here, you've succeeded tremendously, and you're going to continue to succeed. And when I hear you speak, I see role model. Like you have a child. People are going to be listening to this episode. You're young, and the amount of times that you've fallen, gotten back up, the amount of times that you've reinvented yourself, the amount of times that you've been able to stare down adversity and not let it destroy you, I think are true testimonies to where life is going to take you. And so, I think this is the perfect place for us to kind of round things out. I want to say thank you so much for just the amount of information that you gave us in such a short period of time. It's just a lot to reflect on, a lot for us to consider, a lot of perspective for us to think about. And you're leaving the world a better place, every single day that you continue forth on your trajectory, because you're showing others through your actions. You called yourself an introvert. You've worked, you're not an introvert in my eyes. In my eyes, you've got a lot to shed on the people who come, past you. And so keep doing what you're doing, my friend. I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on and for making the time.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, having the opportunity to just share my story. Only the close people that knows me knows some part of it. So this was really grateful. And if you allow me, there is something that I want to put out there for myself to hold myself accountable. And that's just like, I want to be a better father for my son. Life has put me in a situation that I haven't been able to be for him the way that I wanted to. So I'm putting this out so that, I can take on all that and become that person that I want to be as well. But this was great. Thank you so much.
You
I
got
really
it,
appreciate
AJ.
it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for leaving us with that note. Look, as a parent, there's nothing more important, and I completely get it. So thank you, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Bishop. Have an amazing day.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode of the Mile 40 podcast, go ahead, subscribe, leave a review, and share the word. Thank you for being a part of the Mile 40 family. And let's unite in showing the world that comebacks are always greater than setbacks.